Everybody, this is Mr. Morrell, and we are going to be looking at homework assignment 5.4, multivariable inequalities. Kind of like the theme of this whole unit has been, this is stuff that we've already done, only with these inequality signs, like this, there's usually an extra step to what we were doing before. It's kind of like we're finding balance in these equations, but we're trying to tip it one way or the other, like to be not balanced. That's why it's called an inequality. So, we got to kind of rely on, there's several things we talked about in class. The first thing we talked about in class is, when we see an inequality like this, what that means is we're trying to find a pair of numbers that will make this statement true. In other words, I need to find a y number and an x number so that when I plug that stuff in, this side is going to be greater than this side. And we did a little bit of discovering in class, and what we found is there were tons of points that would make this statement true. Tons of them. And the cool thing is that there was like a border between points that did make this statement true and points that didn't. And that border lied on the line, like if we had the equation y equals 2x plus 4, and we graphed that line like we have right here, on one side of the line are all of the points that do make it true, and on the other side of the line we found all of the points that make the statement false. So kind of my recommendation here is to pick any point on the whole graph. We could pick this point here, we could pick this point here, we could pick this point here, or here, or here. Any point that's not on the line. Plug it into the equation and see if that makes the equation true or false. So, for example, I'm going to pick 0, 0 because it's basically my favorite number in the world. Well, 0 is my favorite number. And when I plug in 0, 0 into that equation, if it makes it true, then all of the points on that side will work in that inequality. If it doesn't work, then the other side of the line will work. Let's actually do it so that I can stop talking nonsense. So I'm going to plug in 0, 0. So I'll put a 0 in for x and a 0 in for y. Well, 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 4 is 4. Now I'm going to read this and ask myself if it's true. This is kind of what we were doing in homework assignment 5.1. Is it true that 0 is bigger than 4? That is not a true statement, so the point 0, 0 does not work. In class, the silly way to remember this is I was talking about a pasture. If you were a farmer and you had this big old pasture of grass, and some of your cows were getting sick, you realized that part of your grass was kind of poisoned. It was sick and making your cows sick. So you built a fence along the pasture because you want to separate the cows from the unhealthy grass. Then you kind of pick a sacrificial cow because as you were building the fence, you forgot which side was the bad side. So kind of like we took the cow over here to the point 0, 0 and let it eat the grass. And if the statement is false, like it was here, that means that that grass was the bad grass. So we would want to put all of our cows on this side of the pasture. That would be the healthy side to put them. It's kind of a dumb idea, but heck, I'm crazy, so it works. All right, let's try that again over here. Again, your cows are getting sick. We've already built the fence at 1/3 x minus 2. That's what this line represents. But you forgot which side was the healthy side. So you pick your least favorite cow, and we're going to lead it out to the pasture to this point right here and let it eat the grass and see what happens. So I'm going to plug in a 0 for y and a 0 for x, and then simplify. So 1/3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. And then we ask ourselves, is it true? Is 0 less than or equal to negative 2? Well, no, it's not. 0 is actually bigger than that. So we need all of our cows eating on this side of the pasture to be safe. All of these pairs of numbers I'm highlighting in green you would be able to plug them into the statement and get a true statement. Let me show you an example. Like, if we had actually let our cow eat here at the point 6, negative 6. Let me go ahead and plug that point in so you can get an idea of what it would look like to get a healthy grass. I'm going to plug a negative 6 in for y and a positive 6 in for x. Well, 1/3 times 6 in my calculator when I do that is the number 2. And 2 minus 2 is 0. And then I ask myself, is it true? Is negative 6 really less than or equal to 0? Yeah, it is. That is definitely less than. It's kind of like thinking about it in degrees. Is negative 6 degrees colder than 0? Yeah, it definitely is. So that would have been a healthy place, and that would be the case. The cows could eat any point over here on this side of the graph, and they would be healthy and safe. So let's continue down here with questions, oh my gosh, hold on. Okay, questions 3 and 5. We're going to do the same thing, only this time we actually have to be the ones to build the fence to separate our cows. So that's kind of how I tell my students in my classes how to solve these kinds of problems, is we want to build a fence first. And it has to be the right kind of a fence, and that's going to come up in a second. Okay, so first of all, we know the fence needs to be at x plus 1. So this is my y-intercept. 1 is my y-intercept, so I'm going to start at 1. And then there's an invisible 1 divided by 1 there. This top one is going to tell me I need to go up 1 over 1. So we call this putting the posts down, the posts for our fence. I start at 1, then I go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and I put all of the posts in first. Then I have to decide what kind of a fence I need to put there. I am either going to put a solid wooden fence if it is safe for the cows to eat on the line. I'm going to put a dotted barbed wire fence if I need to keep the cows away from the line. And the way that I determine that is by looking at the inequality. Remember, if I were to actually draw this line here, let me draw the line. I know that every point on the line would balance the equation perfectly. One side would equal the other side. So, the fact that I have this underline here means that I could have the stuff on the left equal the stuff on the right, and that would be okay. It's okay to balance these equations. So what that means is I want to draw a solid line, because it's kind of like that would represent a wooden fence, and it would be safe. If the cows ate on that fence line, they would still be safe. Then I'm going to take my sacrificial cow and let it eat at 0, 0. Okay, so I'm going to plug in a 0 for x and a 0 for y. And simplify. Hey, that rhymed. 0 plus 1 is the number 1. And ask myself, is it true? Is 0 less than or equal to 1? It is true. So that was safe for that cow. It survived. So I want all of my cows to eat on this side of the pasture. If they eat it, and they could even eat on the fence line, that's totally fine. If they eat on the other side of the pasture, they're going to get sick and die, which is sad. All right, let's go ahead and do question 5. Question 5, I need to start at my y-intercept, which is negative 2. Then to put all my other fence posts in, I need to do a slope of negative 1/4. Now, I always teach my students that we could move the negative down with the 4 or up with the 1. I usually always put it up with the upper number just because it's easier. That negative 1 tells us to go down 1 and to the right 4. So my next fence post is going to be right here. And then to continue on the other side, I could have gone up 1 and back 4, and that would still give me a straight fence post. Now, notice, I do not want to balance this equation at all. If I get the same number on both sides, that would be a false statement. Like if I had 0 is less than 0, that's false. That's bad. It's poison grass. I need to keep my cows away from that fence line. So I'm going to put a barbed wire dotted fence here. Now I just have to figure out which side is the safe side for it to eat. So let's take our sacrificial cow over there. Plug in a 0 for our x and our y. So negative 1/4 times 0 is 0. And 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Is it true that 0 is less than negative 2? No, that is a false statement. So that That's sick. That cow got sick and died, so I need to put all of my cows on the other side of the fence. This over here are all of the pairs of numbers that make that equation true. It's where the cows could eat and be healthy and safe and wise. Alright, now notice level 2 continues on the other side, so let's get on over to the other side. Let me change pages. Okay, so question 7, let's do that. Once again, let's put our fence down. I'm going to start at 1. Now, negative 2 would mean to go down 2 to the right 1, or up 2 and back 1. What kind of a fence should I put here? Well, let's do a wooden fence, because it's okay to have balance. The cows would safely be able to eat on the line. Now, let's figure out which side the cows can eat on. I'm going to test 0, 0. 0, 0 is really close to the fence line, but it's still off of the line, so that's good. So 0 in for y, 0 in for x. And we ask ourselves, is it true that 0 is less than or equal to 1? That is true. The cow was safe when he ate that meal. So it's going to be a good place to put all of our cows on this side of the fence. All of these pairs of numbers on this part of the graph would make that inequality true, including the ones on the fence line. Okay, now let's start you on question 10, and then you're going to have to do the rest of the work. To answer question 10, we would have to solve for y. We don't know how to graph lines unless we solve for y yet. So let's go ahead and get y by itself. I use the box of doom method. Y is being multiplied by 2 and added by 3x. So if I'm going to solve for y, I need to do opposite stuff backwards. I'm going to start by subtracting 3x from both sides. Now I don't have an x here on the right side, so I'm going to just put that on the right, like that. So we have 2y is greater than or equal to 4 minus 3x. That took care of that step. Now let's divide all of these things by 2. So y is greater than or equal to 2 minus 3 halves x. And we need to write it in slope-intercept form, so I want to change that to say plus and negative. And then I've got y is greater than or equal to negative 3 halves x plus 2. Okay, then using the methods we talked about, cows and pastures and stuff, go ahead and graph that line, figure out what kind of a fence you need, and which side is going to be safer for your family. Alright, good luck. I will see you guys in the next video, which will be the last one for this unit. See you later.